Today on the All News Overtime Podcast, Adam Cole is here with me, Justin Lee, and we are at the open practice, the Fan Fest, Mageddon thing. You can see it behind us. We're getting started. The marching band played a little bit ago, but hopefully they'll play again. Everyone's here. There's bouncy castles. Everyone's excited, and there's no athletic director, so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Allen Greene's departure a little bit, and then maybe a little bit about the quarterbacks. But yeah, Adam, I just want to continue the conversation. This is Saturday. Allen Greene left on Friday. We had a lot was said, and a lot will continue to be said, but I just want to kind of continue the conversation in a day two kind of way. And it's a tough thing because you've probably heard, if you're listening, you've probably heard a couple different things because it's like, oh, well, this was expected, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
Personally, if you read my column, I think it's a big deal. And maybe it's not a surprise, but I think there is a serious void in leadership at Auburn right now. And, when we come back to point to this crossroads, my thing is, we were there. We talked about it, and we didn't just pretend it wasn't a big deal, because that's no good. But Adam, I want to ask you, because I've blabbered on about it enough yesterday and on Twitter, but you have this outsiders, you just got here months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I said was, and one of the things I try to be careful of is like the national media has done a lot of hand-wringing about Auburn for a long time, and it'll continue to do it, and I know Auburn fans are tired of it. And if you don't like that, hey man, good news. You can talk with us. We're continuing the conversation. Philip Marshall wrote a column. Justin Ferguson and Painter Sharpless did their podcast. There is local stuff. It's not just the outside stuff. But part of the thing is, when what I said was, everyone's always done this hand-wringing, like everything, Auburn's a madhouse, no one knows who to listen to, no one knows who the leader is, no one knows what's going on. And a while back, that wasn't actually true, but it's starting to become true, in that there's a bit of a vacuum. Adam, I don't know, man, what did you see yesterday, and how do you see this just kind of shaken out? I mean, we're at a crossroads for Auburn sports, particularly football.
I think, yeah, it's been really interesting. You talk about like the national media perspective of it's a madhouse at Auburn, and it's funny because coming in here, it's like that was always that was always something that I had kind of thought, and like I do think there's some truth to that, but it's,
well, you look at it objectively.
It's honestly, I don't know. It's funny because it feels way more toned down once you're like here, whatever that the semblance of that is.
Sure.
But after yesterday, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if impressed is the right word. I guess it is a word. I was impressed at the fact that it was, I don't know, it showed, I guess, such a lack of faith in letting it all play out for the best, because, I mean, who knows? Like, Brian Harsin talked all offseason when he got asked about recruiting, and the message was watch.
Right.
In the first 5 games, you've got 5 winnable games to start. You could start 5-0. It could start just like last year when it was 6-2, 6-1.
Right. They are not following Brian Harsin's message. When we talk about a void of leadership, they're not following Brian.
Right. And I mean,
they're not.
It could have played out to where you say, okay, well, Allen's contract's up in January, and so what we'll do is we'll let the football season play out, and if Brian Harsin has one good year, then yeah, maybe we give him a brief extension and we go from there.
And maybe that's what Auburn wanted, because they say Allen, put in his resignation.
Right.
Maybe that's what Auburn wanted, but again, that means Allen wasn't following Brian's vision.
Right.
Of watch. Oh, everything's gonna be fine. Just watch. We're gonna win a bunch of games. Everything's gonna be fine. Everyone's gonna follow me. Nobody listened from that. He has to hope his players listen. School president didn't listen to that, and the athletics director did not listen to that.
Yeah.
No two people in the. I can't name 2 people on the same page right now, and obviously that's a fixable problem. Auburn is still a top 15 team, but right now everyone is a bit scattered, and the Pied Piper, whoever it's going to be, has to come and get people going in the same direction. Because, I mean, there are people even in the athletic department right now who 2 days ago were probably on the same page. Now they probably both want the athletic director job. Adam?
Now,
so they both have different visions. Everyone has a different vision right now. And And does that mean the sky is falling today? No. Does it mean it could lead to some stuff? Yeah. That's like I told someone on Twitter, like, oh, you're being dramatic or whatever. I'm like, don't you wish in December 2017, one of the early dominoes in this, when Stephen Leath was trying to extend Gus Malzahn, don't you wish someone talked and said, hey man, look, things aren't good. Like, you need to talk. Conversations need to be had. Or in December 2020, so hey man, let's talk. Somebody's got to raise a flag, right? Here's the flag. There's a void and no one is following anyone right now. And you brought up a perfect example of that. They're not following Brian. It's not happening. And his plan is to win a whole bunch of games, and then everyone has to. Yeah. That's his plan. And if you like that plan, go for it.
Well, and like, it's funny because as much as we say like that's his plan, like it's not even. That's the only thing that can happen at this point to say Brian Harson's job.
That's it.
And after yesterday, I mean, the one thing was that it was like Allen was of course involved in Harson's hiring, and that was. The little bit of padding that was there for him and his security, and now it's just gone like that. So you're right. Like I mean,
his ally, as one of his few allies,
right? Maybe his only. Like,
right?
But
because he came here, and whether you like this or not, again, this is an analysis. We're just telling you what he's done. You might love it, you might hate it, but he didn't come here to make friends, right? And that's not a shot at Brian.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what the heck he did, and if you like that or hate it, go for it. Make your own decisions. But he didn't come here to make friends, and he hasn't broken bread with the people that previous coaches have, right? He hasn't. That hasn't been part of his strategy. Now, if you believe in that strategy, fine. But that's, you know what I mean? And so now it's like I said, the only exit path is to win a bunch of football games and make everyone have to listen to him. Hostile takeover. That's it. Yeah,
or get canned. I mean, those are really the only two outcomes, and it's I don't know. At least from, like you kind of mentioned, like I guess my newer, fresher perspective from it or whatever. Like the other bummer of it is I don't know. I thought Allen seemed like just good at his job for the most part, and I mean I don't know. Looking at it,
well, Auburn, and it's been pointed out that Auburn thrived in a few different ways while he was here. Mostly off the football field.
Right, but it's funny because we always go back to the big, obviously the cash cow is football, and you can't
right.
An athletic director can be good in every single way outside of football, but if they can't cut the mustard with the football team, then it's still kind of a moot point.
I'll be old talking about that few weeks in January when then Auburn Arena, the last days of Auburn Arena, when it was on fire, and you had Jabari Smith, who should have been competing in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks, and Suni Lee, who should have been competing in Tokyo against China, and they were both they're right over there. It's crazy, and more to that direction. And that was a great success for Auburn athletics in such a way that I think non-football sports did take steps forward under Greene's tenure, and how much of that is Greene and how much of that it just happened. Whatever, but it happened, So I mean, I feel that. I think Justin Ferguson did a really good job of pointing this out, that Allen had ruffled feathers even before feathers of these war eagles, right? No, they're the Tigers. He had ruffled feathers before December 20, before he hired Brian Harsin. That happened, right? Yeah. Ultimately, Stephen Leath was hired by, Allen Greene was hired by Stephen Leath. You talk about alignment, you talk about everybody wants to pick who they work for. That in that way, it's not the shock that Allen's time has come. But again, to me, ultimately, it's a failure of Allen recruiting the president to be on his side, the president recruiting Allen to where he can be on his side to be like, oh, I know he's going to do what I want him to do, therefore he's fit for the job.
Yeah.
Apparently that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, like I said, you got the money. Money can't believe in the coach can't believe in the money can't believe in the AD can't believe in the money. Nobody believes in anybody right now.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like to the max.
And a lot of people want to blame someone for not falling in line. And me personally, I'm putting the blame on people who did not recruit people to be on their side. Yeah. But that's just me. What do you think, Adam? Anything else? Are you just ready for football?
I mean, honestly, at this rate, like
How about the Tennessee AD, man? That is nuts. But see, that's 2022. You can just say whatever you want now.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking to see that. And I mean, of course, it was, I guess, a family affair. But
sure, they're buds.
Him and, yeah, no, I mean, it makes enough sense that it was. But it was still kind of shocking to see that it was just that blatant. I suppose.
But I guess, and we haven't seen it before. But I mean, anyone can mudsling any at all.
Yeah.
Like it's over. Like, look at the White House in recent years. It doesn't matter. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's where we are right now. That's where we are. So I don't understand why Alabama's AD wasn't piling on.
Yeah.
He could if he wanted to. There'd be no repercussions.
Yeah.
Nothing matters.
Well, let me ask you this, at least as far as moving forward from this, where do you see Auburn going with its next athletic director? Because it seems like a lot of the talk has been internal.
Sure.
But just, I mean, where do you see them going with this?
Well, Chris Roberts was internal.
Yeah.
He came from the engineering department, so I can understand them wanting to go internal. Now, does that mean that an Auburn man, an Auburn person, can't hire outside? Of course not, because Bruce Pearl is an outsider. We point to that all the time. He's an outsider in a lot of ways, and he came in and fit in, and it was a really good hire when they made it, and that was Jay Jacobs. And Jay Jacobs was, me personally, when Bruce was, when he was interviewed and it was kind of being talked about, I was like, man, I don't know if Jay will really pull the trigger on it. I really don't.
Yeah.
But he did, to his credit, and I think Auburn can do that moving forward. I think even if Auburn hires an Auburn man, capital A, capital M, as athletics director, he could still hire football coaches. That could still happen. There's just shades of gray, and it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. And the people who want to just paint like, oh, the good old boy network is evil and terrible, and the guy from Idaho is a virtue of compassion. It's not true. Everyone's gray.
Yeah.
All of them. And you can't just make heroes and villains of it. That's not how the real world works.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I personally thought Chris and Allen could have been compatible.
Yeah.
Having met them briefly. I knew Allen better than I knew Chris. They're not dead. They're still here. But I've only met Chris briefly.
Yeah.
And I think they could have been compatible in another world, in another universe, without whatever barrier came between them. So I'm not so sure what Chris will do.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I almost think he's not going to go hire his own version. Here's my answer to your question.
Yeah.
He could just go hire another Allen.
Yeah.
But then he would have just kept Allen.
Right.
So I think they're going to hire
internally.
Yeah, that's what I think.
That makes enough sense, because it's, I don't know. I think it's probably not best to harken back to one of these examples, but between one of the whites, one of them called Allen a rock star, and I mean, yeah, it makes enough sense. He's young, person of color in athletic administration, and I'm sure he'll go on to do something great. But you make a really good point with that, because I hadn't really even necessarily thought about it that way. And I don't know. It's interesting too what you mentioned about kind of the hiring from outside, and like I don't disagree with you at all that you can hire whoever in any role, whether it's the guy from Idaho to run the football team or whatever else. But it's interesting looking at the circumstance of when Pearl was hired for men's basketball. Right. I don't know that it's. And I don't even know. I wouldn't call Butch an outsider, because he was a former assistant here at Auburn. But
he's an SEC guy. I mean, always an SEC guy.
You look at the situations with both of those programs, and I mean, Auburn basketball maybe more than anything. Like the bar seemed like it was so low.
Yes.
And it just seems like everybody looks at the football team so differently. I don't know.
Sure.
Like regardless of where the team from years past has set the bar, it seems the bar remains in one spot for that football team as far as expectations go.
Right.
And so
I think Auburn's a top 15 program.
Right.
That's what I think. Top 15 job.
I don't disagree with that at all. But it's just it seems so I don't know, to make an outside hire with football, as much as it's doable, and we'll see how it bodes in year two for Harsin. If there is a new hire made at some point, not to beat the redundancy of internal, or like not internal, but
Sure.
more so somebody who's been here, who's done it, who
Sure.
has ties. Like,
Sure.
I don't see how they don't go in that direction if that's the next step with the football team. That's maybe putting carts before
Sure.
horses, but
Sure.
it's just I don't know, it's interesting.
We're talking about the flow chart. We're talking
Yeah.
about if this then that, if this then that, and we talked about before. If Brian Harsin has a successful season, people are going to be forced to follow him.
Yeah.
Because he is getting all the credit and all the blame
Right.
for everything that happens this season.
Right.
Because he has his 2 coordinators from Boise State that he handpicked. He has 3 quarterbacks that he picked from the transfer portal that are all his. And he's gonna I'll be impressed if they do a whole lot this season. It's gonna be because of his vision.
Right.
So if you're rooting for Brian Harsin, you're rooting for Auburn football to win games.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, he's gonna. I mean, if it craters, he's gonna be
Yeah.
the scapegoat.
Right. Yeah.
And that's, again, I'm just laying it out there. That's analysis. We're talking about zigging and zagging. I'm not talking about who's better or worse.
Yeah.
We're talking about this way, zigging and zagging. We're
Yeah.
just laying it out. The choices that were made at what pathways. Ultimately, you hope it goes, to the promised land, but you got to take left or right turns. And at some points, he could have gone right and he went left. Sometimes he could have gone right and he went left. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing. So again, football we'll see. So there's the flow chart. It's like if this happens, this happens. If not, this happens. And if he's in the middle, if he just does just enough to keep his job, then we're going into hot seat year 3 because year 2.
What is just enough though? As far as you see
7-5 probably.
7-5?
But it depends on who you beat and who you don't. And
Right.
it depends on if you present a proof of concept that this is going to get better.
Yeah.
If they are pushing people around in the trenches, if he is delivering on promises besides winning football games, because here's the thing, Adam, and I'll say this, and I shouldn't, but I will.
Here we go.
A lot of the things that he has sold himself on, and I don't mean that in a bad way because Bruce is a great salesman, right?
Yeah.
And I give Bruce that compliment all the time. A lot of things Brian has sold of, hey, we're gonna have the most attention to detail. They don't have the most attention to detail. We have recruiting posters coming out that are terrible, right?
Good point.
Not great attention to detail. Maybe one day in the future. Oh, we're gonna be the most disciplined team. They're not the most disciplined team. I don't think he's suspended anybody this entire time. Quarterback had a legal issue. Nothing, right?
Yeah.
And maybe he shouldn't have. They're not the most strictest, most disciplined team. Other programs would have done something to their quarterback.
Yeah.
Facts. So he's got it. So it all comes down to this strength thing, this running the stadium stairs thing, this conditioning thing, that they're just going to be tougher, 4th and 1 mentality than everybody. I mean, that's kind of the last promise. You know what I mean?
Right.
And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm like, okay, what are you selling now?
Yeah.
What are you going to sell me now? And again, this year, if he can prove the proof of concept, if he just skates to like 6 wins because the schedule kind of sucks and the Mississippi schools aren't very good and Arkansas craters.
Right.
If it doesn't show the proof of concept, a new athletic director could get rid of him and could be justified for it, because there's a path in which you can win 6 games this year and 2023 looks dire because you have automatic losses to Alabama and Georgia at home that year, and your offensive line room is.
Yeah.
And I will say this though. If recruiting can improve. I do think this is different than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think the money, I think the people that matter, I think everyone is paying attention to recruiting rankings now, which they did not
10 years
ago or 20 years ago. That is another field of battle that Brian Harsin can win on.
Yeah.
If he, again, when I talk about proving proof of concept, say, hey, well, we went 6-6, but great recruiting class.
Yeah. And I mean,
again, you're proving it. You're doing it.
Yeah, and with these recruiting classes too, it's interesting because I think, I don't know, it hasn't been talked about that
Matt?
much.
Who was that?
I don't know who that was. Is the guy in the
Someone I
white
know.
polo with the beard?
Yeah, that's Matt.
But I don't know. We haven't talked about it a ton with the recruiting classes, but I mean, small numbers, and like, I think understandably so, and like not to like give any sort of excuse for it, but like I mean obviously like when you come off a year where a bunch of teams can recruit against you by saying that like, hey, this guy almost got canned
Sure.
1 year in, obviously like you're not going to get a ton of guys, but they're all 4 stars.
Yeah.
I mean, yet to get a 5-star, of course, but like it's not. I think the only team that they've surpassed in like the SEC as far as recruiting rankings go, I think right now is Missouri, and Missouri has like 6 3-stars and like 4 4-stars, something like that.
There's a volume.
There's a
issue.
level of quality to the guys that he's bringing in the rankings, and like he said, if they win,
if you
curious
expand
to see like where it goes from there. But if you're right, if he wins in that department, that seems like just such a huge bargaining chip nowadays to say, well, hey, like let me keep my guys and let me get them built up, and then once they're my guys, if they don't win, then can me. But obviously nobody's gonna say can me, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean.
That's one field. That's another field of battle that he could win on this fall, leading up to December early signing period.
Yeah.
So, man, let's get out of here. I don't know what our battery's going to be. We could talk about quarterback. This will probably come out after the. So anyway, go to OANow.com to find out what all happened in this scrimmage. Adam's going to do some quarterback observations, and we'll let you know because it's game week and Auburn does not have a starting quarterback.
Ooh baby, ooh baby.
Hey, and then after that it's the season.
Yep.
So it's a good time. So, any parting thoughts, Adam?
I'm really impressed by the Obby bounce house. There's an Obby bounce house here.
They had to custom make that.
I was gonna say that as my first thing when you asked me the question about
That's
Allen
like a tiger,
Greene, but it seemed a little. It's like
a tiger.
Little offbeat. I guess just a tiger, but
I guess you get that.
Pretty cool. I might head that way. So.
Yeah. Go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, I got my slides on. It'll be quick
Adam.
and easy.
All right, we'll let you get in there. For Adam Cole, this is Justin Lee. This has been OA News Overtime.